What is going on, everyone? Welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks and Raycon. It is Brian Hines back as always with Alex Barth ahead of the Patriots Week 6 matchup down there in New Orleans against the Saints. And Barth coming off a big Sunday night win. A big emotional win, right? Go up to Buffalo in primetime and win that football game. You're riding high. And now you're back on the road down in New Orleans, in the Superdome. It's loud.
Yep.
Saints coming off their first win of the year. Is this the definition of a trap game? And are you worried about this maybe being a trap game for these Patriots?
I mean, it's definitely a trap game. It's absolutely a trap game. I don't know how it couldn't be. Am I worried about it? I think that a little bit. I think the messaging has been great all week. And was it Diggs yesterday who kept kind of getting asked about the stakes of it? It was just like, we're playing the Saints. And
that was, I think that was Jalen Hawkins who just kept saying Saints. Diggs had the really good quote where it was, this could be almost as much of a test.
That's right.
As Buffalo, coming off that win, and paraphrasing obviously, but that's how Diggs kind of phrased that one. So definitely messaging has been good.
Yeah, Vrabel had some good stuff this week as well on Wednesday. Like I feel like they're aware that it's a trap game, which if you're aware it's a trap game, then it becomes not a trap game, right? Because you're on your P's and Q's. But look, coming off the big win against Buffalo, you got Vrabel's return to Tennessee next week. Obviously, two of the more notable games on the schedule. This is an NFC opponent that you never play that's having a down year. But the other thing is, I think the Saints might, having studied them this week, and I know I was somebody that was pretty hard on them from the jump, and I still don't think they're anything special. Like, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I was maybe a little too hard on them. Like, I do think there's a little bit there with this team that if the stars align, they can get you, and they can at least give you a frustrating afternoon. So this is a trap game. This is one that they need to be up for. And this would be so disappointing for them to lose, because a chance to get to 4-2, a chance to really build some momentum, beat up on this soft underbelly of the schedule, and like prove that last week was real. And we all think it's real, right? But not have it be, all right, well, they peaked and they're back down. And like, no, keep the momentum going. When's the last time this franchise had like real forward momentum? So I do think it's a little bit of a trap game, but I think they do too, which is honestly encouraging.
Yeah, definitely. It's been good messaging. Their last 3-game win streak, do you remember when that was?
Yes, it was the last time they won consecutive games, which is, but the bye's in the middle. So I don't know if we're counting the same one.
But
it's
I was
22, right?
I was counting that. It was the legendary stretch of Zach Wilson, Sam Ehlinger on the Colts, and then they had the bye, and then they got Zach Wilson again on the other end of the bye. Which, what a 3-game win streak that was. So if you want to go before that, then it was 2021 when they rattled off 7 in a row. But yeah, they haven't had positive momentum like that in a while, and this one would be disappointing. If you win this, I could maybe, if you're competitive and maybe you lose a competitive game in Tennessee, then you could kind of spin that. Cam Ward's looked pretty good, and it's tough to win 3 straight games on the road. That's a big challenge. But this one, I'm kind of with you that you should win. Although I'm also with you, like the Saints roster, more talent than I originally expected. Some good offensive skill position players. They have some veterans on the defensive side of the football, and Demario Davis and Cameron Jordan, good defensive line. Even like their secondary, like I didn't, looking at the names, I was a Jonas Sinker fan mid-round in the draft. Kool-Aid McKinstry was a high pick. But they're up at the top of the league, as Vrabel and May both noted, in pass deflection. So there is some sneaky good talent on this team, but there is some spots like the offensive line that kind of drops off, and whatever you think of Spencer Rattler. But on that defensive side of the Barth, your old friend, Brandon Staley, too. Are you worried about Brandon Staley at all over there on defense?
Yeah, no. Yes and no. I don't know. Like,
better coordinator than coach.
Right. I've said this a lot of times. Like, there are guys that are good coordinators, and that's just what they are. Hell, we had Josh McDaniels asked today if he'd ever head coach again. But he is a better defensive coordinator. My thing about Brandon Staley is, and this goes back to something we talked about last week, Brandon Staley is not interested in stopping the run. He simply does not care, because he's one of these math coaches that believes you win or lose with the pass. And like, if the opponent's running the ball, whether they're having success or not, like that's good because they're not throwing the ball. So in theory, you should be able to run on this defense. Now, they have a couple of good natural run defenders. Brian Brzee, I think, is an underrated player in this league.
Definitely.
First round pick a couple years ago. He's having a great start to the year. Pat stats on it as always. And they have Devon Godshaw there too, two gapping and in the middle. So they brought him in to help improve their run defense a little bit. So there's some guys that are naturally going to do it. But we said last week the Patriots should be able to run the ball on a bad Bills run defense, and they couldn't. So if they're not able to run the ball, things get a lot tougher. And they're down, one of their backs, the Antonio Gibson, who is playing well. So, like, that's the biggest thing that concerns me it's not necessarily about Brandon Staley, who, again, is not a bad defensive coordinator, but just looking at his tendencies, the way you beat his defense generally, or at least part of it, is you run the ball well, and he'll let you do it. Like, he won't adjust to it and take it away, especially for a Patriots team that's favored and, if they can get up early, can start running the ball and running clock. If they can't get the run game going, well, now it becomes another story, and now they have to play kind of not left-handed, but one hand tied behind their back, and it gets a little more murky.
Yeah, and Staley's scheme kind of plays into that, right? A lot of lighter boxes, right. And it worked with the Rams when he was a coordinator there because he had Aaron freaking Donald in the middle of there, and he could,
right.
Muck stuff up. And so they're giving up over 120 yards on the ground this season. So you can run on this team.
Yeah, that number, that number's a little misleading because they've been behind so much and teams are running.
Fair.
They're allowing 4.3 yards per carry, which is 21st. So still not great, but they're a little closer to middle of the pack than, like, I forget what the total yardage is, but it's another tier.
If you take out garbage time, it probably comes down a little bit, but
yeah, because they weren't just losing. I mean, they were getting blown out in some of those games. Yardage wise, they rank. They're actually better. Oh no, they're not. Sorry, they're 20th in yards against. They're 14th in yards per carry against, 4.2. So they're middle of the pack in yards per carry, which is, I think, stands out a little more.
But you mentioned, Gibson obviously lost for the year. So
yeah,
what are you thinking just in that room? They signed up running back to their practice squad. So we're not getting Alvin Kamara or Derrick Henry or someone this week, a minor change. It looks just like it's going to be Terrell Jennings elevated, but then do you think he's going to get any carries, or they're just going to go right back to Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson? Or what did you think that backfield split is going to look like this week with no Gibson?
So I think it's going to be more of a Stevenson-Henderson even split. Now, keep in mind, this is a Saints team that did a good job last week of punching for the football. So the turnover thing, the fumble thing, that looms large. An interesting number I found earlier, and if you see me kind of screwing around here, I'm trying to pull it up again. The Travion Henderson needs to be used more take. And we've talked about this the last couple weeks, but it's relevant. There's not that much more they can use him. He's 6 carries behind Ramondre Stevenson. He's 4 touches behind Ramondre Stevenson for the season. That's through 5 games. That's a rounding error. That's neck and neck, essentially. And in terms of his usage rate, so this stat is a little... I'm manipulating this. I'm massaging the numbers a little bit to prove my point. And Brian, I'm curious your reaction to this. So I went back and looked during Josh McDaniels' last stint in New England from 2012 to 2021. Which running back who was used the second most played the most? So with that so I'm not doing this by role. The running back that played the highest percentage of snaps ever during that McDaniels run, James White played 53% of the snaps in 2018. Shane Vereen, 52% in 2014. So that passing down role has been used more than Henderson's been used. But just in terms of identifying, because some years, depending on the personnel and the opponents, like the early down back is RB1. Some years the passing down back is RB1. In years where the early down back is RB1, right? So who is the running back who played the most while not playing the most on his team? Does this make sense, or am I do I sound
I'm following you.
Okay.
Basically, yeah, I know what you're saying.
Right. So James White has the most. In 2016, James White played 38.1% of the snaps. That was second to LeGarrette Blount, who's at 47.1%. So 38.1 is the high watermark for this. Travion Henderson is a whole percentage point above that. He's at 39.1% as the second most used running back. So basically, I guess this is a long way of saying how McDaniels generally breaks up the carries. That using Travion Henderson more means he becomes the top running back. And when he's not producing the way he's not producing right now, just 4.5 yards per touch, under 4 yards per carry, it's hard to justify that. Now, it's hard to justify it with Stevenson too because he's fumbling, but I think it's kind of clear they just want to get the run game jump-started, and they'll live with the fumbles if that's what it takes. Whether that's right or wrong, I mean, we can debate that. But I don't know how much more there is for Henderson. So it's a long way of saying I think it's going to be still Stevenson. It's going to lean Stevenson with Henderson maybe getting a little bump, and I think you'll see Terrell Jennings mix in occasionally.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you with Travion. It just he's getting opportunities. He's just not doesn't seem like he's seeing the field still very well right now.
No.
So it's just, we all want more, but I think it's just doing more right now. It's doing more with the snaps and the touches that he's getting. That's the first step you kind of want to see. Now, maybe you go to this fast track inside and he's going to break one of these down in New Orleans. That would be a positive start, but I'm with you. We talked to Josh McDaniels today. He gave a long answer about, how much he loves Ramondre still. And we know Vrabel has his back. So I think it's going to be still a good amount of Ramondre, Henderson doing what he kind of has been doing, and then Jennings mixes in. So I'm with you, but and with the splits there, but just do you have a take just on the run game as a whole and how they get this going? Like, do you think it's more offensive line? Do you think it's more on the running backs? I know there's a lot of numbers out there that you can kind of tell both sides of the story.
Yeah,
with, but
I think it's
one. Do you lean to one side?
I think it's the running backs. They have one of the lowest, stuff rates, and they're not losing yards. Like there's a handful of carries, if any, that went for negative yards. But they're I think they're 31st in the league in yards after contact. So the running backs are getting what's given to them, which is not a lot, but it's not nothing. But they're not getting more than that. I think Vrabel kind of nailed it this week. Talked about, one more block, one more guy, making one more guy miss, something like that is what it's going to come down to. Like, it hasn't been bad. It just hasn't been good. And on some teams, that's okay. If your run game just sort of exists and you just use it as a means to not become too one-dimensional, it can't operate this way for this team, not right now. They need more out of the run game than just it being functional. And that comes with big plays. They don't have a lot of big plays from the run game. Like, if they were to mix in 1 to 2 20-plus yard runs a game, and the rest of the runs stayed the way they are, that's a top 10, top 5 run game in the league. But when you don't add those explosive plays to it, when you just have a bunch of 3 and 4 yard runs, now you're still leaning on your passing game more to move the chains and almost exclusively create those explosive plays. So, yeah, I just think it's at the second level. They're winning at the line of scrimmage. But whether it's linemen pulling up to get the linebackers, or whether it's running backs making linebackers and safeties miss in the hole, that's where they're lacking. Is there needs to be more pop with this run game.
Yeah, the backs are last in yards after contact and avoided tackle rate. So not breaking tackles there to add to the yards that they are getting blocked. And Vrabel said on your point, like they just need a couple more of those double-digit runs. So it's positive that they're not getting pushed backwards and going backwards all the time. And, that's helping the pass game still stay ahead of the sticks, and then they can still work their play action and their bootlegs and stuff. But it does feel like they need a little bit more out of their running backs right now in order to do that. And do you think with like a guy like Mondre, now he's just, I'm going to get what's blocked for me and kind of go down, with these fumbling issues. And then that's where that starts to stem from. And I'm just going to protect the ball and not really fight for extra yards. Like, do you think that could start being an issue now with those, those stats we just said last in avoided tackle rate and yards after contact?
I do think that's a part of it is he's just running more conservatively because he doesn't want to fumble. I absolutely think that might be the case.
Yeah.
I think it probably is the case, at least in part.
Yeah. I'm with you there. So that's the run game. Hopefully they can get that going a little bit down there in New Orleans against some of those lighter boxes they should see. I want to do a little bit more on the offense here, but before we do that, hear from our friends over at Prize Picks, because Barth, you and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. So don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right and it's simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in. We got some Thursday night football tonight. Eagles at Giants, Jackson Dart, Jalen Hurts. Who knows what's going on with that Eagles offense, and AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, only a couple carries last week for Barkley. So maybe they force feed him tonight against those Giants, but make sure you head over to Prize Picks to make your little Thursday night lineup, or you can stick to Sundays with the New England Patriots. Barth and I will, of course, have our lineup at the end of the show today, so you guys can play along with us. So make sure you guys download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, all over on Prize Picks, where it is good to be right. All right, and again, we'll have our lineup at the end, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. I wanted to talk about, Drake, this passing game. Jason in the chat said, are we afraid of the Kool-Aid man, Kool-Aid McKinstry? Bart, do you think they can have some success against this passing attack? It's, sticking with Brandon Staley, they do a lot of this scheme pressure up front. They do a lot of match coverage in the back. So, Drake's going to have to be on top of it from a mental side of things. So do you think there will be some plays, though, to be had through the air in this one for them?
Yeah, I think so. There's been, they have some nice individual players in coverage, but they've struggled in coverage as a whole. So I think they should be able to throw it on. Obviously, it's all eyes on Diggs, right? Last week was a big game, but he's hyped up going back to Buffalo and all that. And can he build on it this week? I think it's the big thing for me in the pass game.
Yep. They're also, the Saints are one of the worst teams in intermediate yards. So maybe a Kayshon Boutte, you see a little bit more Boutte, especially if more attention's on Diggs, right? That could be one trickle down effect. And those tight ends have always been big for Drake. So maybe those tight ends, but you have to block it up front. Carl Granderson, long arms going against Will Campbell, Cameron Jordan on the other side. We mentioned Brian Breezy on the inside. What do you think of this O-line matchup for Will Campbell and co for the Pats?
It's more about the interior. We've talked so much about the tackles, and obviously Cam Jordan can still get it done, but you're going to have Brzee, you're going to have Devon Godchaux, you're going to have Demario Davis flying downhill. Like, I actually think it's a bigger test for the interior, which I don't think we've said yet this year. So
probably not.
There's some, depending on where they line them up, but like there's some potential fun matchups in there, right? Mike Onwenu, Devon Godchaux, these guys were teammates for 3 years. And what does it look like them going against each other? I think Brian Brzee is a really good test for Jared Wilson over there at left guard. So pass game, I think the Patriots have the advantage. It'll just be, in the run game, the help's not coming for those guys up front. Like we talked about, they're not going to run blitz or anything. So if they can clear the way, there will be opportunities, but they have to be able to clear the way.
Mm-hmm. We've been talking down at Gillette a little, or Evan and Taylor have. I don't know. Yeah. Are you go with the interior right now, or are you maybe try Ben Brown in there for Jared Wilson? Just not like projecting anything long term for Jared Wilson, but maybe just the case of the rookie sitting down. We used the Ted Karras in 2021 to kind of settle that line down. Are you at that point right now, or are you still go with Jared Wilson at left guard?
Let me see another game or two, because Garrett Bradbury struggled a little bit against Buffalo. And if there's a chance that you're sitting him, it suddenly becomes a lot of moving pieces. Okay, we're going to go Ben Brown in for Jared Wilson. Now we're going to put Jared Wilson back in for Garrett Bradbury. Like, maybe just kind of, I'm not against putting Ben Brown in the lineup. I'm not sure where yet.
Yeah.
So, because is there also a situation where they look at it, and if they move Bradbury, it's like, or like, is there a situation where Ben Brown ends up at center and Jared Wilson stays at guard? So I don't think it's, a finished product, especially with the run game being the way it is. And I think it's fine. I don't think it's bad. This is just can you take it to the next level? But nobody's been bad enough yet that I'm like, you got to bench them. There's some guys that you're definitely watching, but I'm not there yet where it's like, let's start making changes.
Yeah, it's not the point where like we have to change something out, right? Because they
Right.
have been moving the football pretty well for the most part on offense. But that's just something I think kind of tucked away that maybe, if you want to try to take that next step, maybe they try to shuffle that around, or if someone continues to struggle, that they could maybe make a change there. But that's offense. Anything else to add on that side of the football?
I think that's it.
All right, so jumping over to the defense against the Saints offense, Kellen Moore. You can see kind of the Eagles stuff with Spencer Rattler. They get him on the move. Sneaky good athlete, Spencer Rattler.
Yeah.
But the big news today from the Patriots side of things, Christian Gonzalez popped back up on the injury report with that hamstring. He was limited. When we were out for practice, he was stretching, and then he just kind of left the main practice field. The cornerbacks coach, Justin Hamilton, said that's part of just this plan he has with Vrabel and the strength staff, kind of like what we saw from Christian Barmore, I would imagine, this summer, just kind of ramping things back up. So any concern about Christian Gonzalez on Sunday, his status, and do you think they would need Christian Gonzalez if he can't go? And could they take care of the Saints and their skill guys with just Carlton Davis and go?
Well, look, I'm going to be, we kind of, those first 3 weeks, we were like, of all the games for Christian Gonzalez to miss, like this one isn't that bad. And then we came back on here on Monday and we're like, wow, we really underestimated how much they needed Christian Gonzalez. So I'm not going to say they don't need him. They do need him. And this actually is Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, that is a good group of receivers. Brandon Cooks, who's not what he was, but can still play. Excuse me. In terms of today's thing, like I'm kind of surprised they weren't doing this earlier, or maybe they were and something got screwed up where today was the first day we noticed, or today was the first day that like that extra warm-up period happened in front of the media, so they had to put them on the injury report, something like that. Like, I don't know. There's always a certain background level of concern with something like a hamstring. It's just like, it's so easy to re-aggravate, but I don't look at today and think like he's not going to play Sunday. I thought the second half against Buffalo, he was excellent. That's the best he's looked in a minute. So, 4 halves of football, and that was the best one of them. So it's not that big of a sample size, but yeah, I'm not super worried. I mean, it's something to keep an eye on, certainly. And ideally, that like the Panthers game becomes a blowout, so he doesn't have to play as many snaps, and you can sit him down there in the fourth quarter. But it's definitely worth watching because those hamstring injuries can get re-aggravated. We all know that.
Exactly. Yeah, the fact that it's those soft tissues in the hamstrings, that's like just the biggest thing that I think there would be some level of concern about, but it still seemed like when he was out there in front of us, he was moving fairly well. So we'll kind of monitor and see what happens. Cause he wasn't on the injury report since he's come back, I believe, right? Like he wasn't ahead of
he wasn't on
Carolina
last week.
Yeah, so he's been pretty much
No, he was on ahead of Carolina. He was on
okay.
that week.
And then he played, and then
that was
on
his
at all
debut.
before
Yes, then he
Buffalo.
wasn't on it last week.
Yep, and he wasn't on yesterday on Wednesday, their first practice of the week.
Right.
So, those hamstrings can always be tricky, but I wouldn't say too overly concerned with anything at this point. But you mentioned Shaheed, really fun player, really fast player. Chris Olave, still a good receiver. But Juwan Johnson, tight end, kind of an underrated tight end, in my opinion. Do you think they can cover a tight end this week, or is Juwan Johnson gonna go off and be the next kind of one of these tight ends in line to burn them for a big game?
It still seems like something that they're going to have a problem with. So I don't know that he's going to go for like 120 yards, but Juwan Johnson worries me a little bit in this game. I'm curious where they go. And the other thing with the injury report today, don't lose track of with Gonzalez, Marte Mop, who's been listed with a neck injury for the last few weeks. He was a full participant yesterday. He got knocked down and limited today, and they added a hamstring injury to the neck injury. So that's a guy I think maybe you look at taking on a bigger role covering tight ends, and he's now banged up, apparently. More banged up than he was.
Or we've talked about even using, Alex Austin in that role. And if Gonzo is limited or not going at all, like is Alex Austin needed to play a little bit more corner? Or we've even seen Charles Woods play a little bit more corner. So maybe Alex Austin, has gotten past there, and then you can still use him as tight ends if they want to. But and Jalen Hawkins has been a safety who has to take these tight ends in man coverage a lot, and he hasn't practiced all week with a hamstring injury. So that one was interesting because you would imagine he got hurt in the Panthers game. You would have thought he wouldn't have played against Buffalo, but he goes out there and plays all the defensive snaps, and now he hasn't practiced this week at all. So we'll see with the Jalen Hawkins hamstring injury. I would imagine that's just more Kyle Duggar, maybe a little bit more Del Pettis. I don't know if they want to go full, like 100% of the snaps Kyle Duggar, so you get a rotation in there with Del Pettis, or maybe a little Brendan Schooler even on the back end if Jalen Hawkins can't go. But we'll monitor that one as well. And the other spot they're kind of hurting is the edge, because Keon White hasn't practiced with that elbow injury. Caleb Chason, who didn't play Sunday night in Buffalo, has been limited with this knee injury pretty much all season. Like, where do you think they go along the edge? Are we looking at, I'd imagine Elijah Ponder gets a little bit more of an opportunity. Hopefully Chason's there, but could we see maybe a Braden Swinson or a Truman Jones off the practice squad? Like, where do you think they go on the edge if Keon White can't play and Chason maybe is still a little banged up?
I'd like to see Braden Swinson be the next guy up. I think it's probably Ponder. You also have to remember, like, we're kind of getting there with all right, so you're elevating Terrell Jennings, which I think they kind of have to do at this point.
Yeah.
Because you can't just have 2 running backs on the roster. And then, so is Swinson the other guy? If Gonzalez is banged up, do they need to elevate a corner? Like, you only get 2, so you got to play that game. I'd like it to be Swinson, but Ponder's on the team. So I think there's a chance it might be Ponder.
I could see Ponder, and then maybe like they elevate Truman Jones for some special team stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't even think I said Anthony Jennings. Did I say Anthony Jennings didn't practice today too with an ankle injury? So that's another edge you're down. So if you're down multiple, you figure one of your call ups or elevations is going to have to be, one of those edge guys. So Mike Smith was pretty complimentary of Braden Swinson today. We talked to them, said he's had a really good last 3 weeks of practice, but the special teams versatility with Truman Jones, and if you don't need him too much to play on the defensive side, maybe they go for Truman Jones there over Braden Swinson. But that edge, pretty banged up on that edge right now, so we'll continue to track that as well. But anything else of note on this defense or anything else with this Saints offense that kind of scares you? Are you a Spencer Rattler guy at all, or with the run game?
There's been a lot of praise for Rattler this week. I wasn't the biggest Rattler guy coming out of college. I think he belongs in the league. I think he's a good spot starter quarterback, and that might ultimately be what he is. I will say, big picture, this is what worries me. Does Miami's offense, not schematically, but just the way it's put together, does it remind you a little bit? I spoiled it there. Does New Orleans offense remind you a little bit of Miami? There's a ton of speed.
Yeah.
Undersized quarterback who gets the ball out quick and can move around a little bit. Now, I actually think at this point, Rattler might have a bigger arm than Tua, but
yeah, definitely. I would say so.
A guy that can move around, that gets the ball out quick, a suspect offensive line, a running back that's a real threat. And we saw how it's specifically the team's speed and the ability to get the ball out quick. There's similarities there. And we saw how that went against Miami. Now, Brandon Cooks and Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave are not Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So there's that element of it. But those kind of issues gave the Patriots some fits. And they also didn't have Gonzalez in that game. So you hope you have him back, because we came away from that game. Man, they only had Gonzalez. But that's kind of what I have my eye on. Does New Orleans look, and again, it's different schematically. They're not running some of the stuff. And I actually don't know what New Orleans' motion rate is, but I would imagine it's not as high as Miami's. I don't know if you can find that quickly, Brian, but
Miami's always near the top of the league. So I don't think it would be that high. But
if I'm New Orleans, if I'm Kellen Moore, I'm going in and looking at it and seeing what Miami did to give the Patriots issues and trying to implement some of that. Because I think they do have some of the same tools personnel-wise at their disposal, or similar tools, not the same, but similar tools at their disposal that Miami does.
Yeah. Rashid Shaheed can house call.
Rashid Shaheed's a good player. Also the most fun name in the league to say.
Oh,
easily.
100%. Upcoming free agent, if he gets there.
Yeah, he's not getting there.
Yeah, I don't
They'd
think
be idiots
there. So I was trying to find their motion rate quick. I can't do that. They are pretty low in explosive pass rate this year. And they get the ball out quick, which you said with Rattler, which they keep playing all these guys who get the ball out so quick. The defensive line, I is frustrated. They can't tee off. So they'll have their opportunities to tee off. The Saints offensive line has not been very good, but hopefully they get some chances to get after Rattler, but he's pretty mobile and is getting the ball out pretty quickly as well there. So we'll see. But yeah, they have some speed. So they can break some big plays every now and then. So, all right, let's jump over. We have one last thing to talk about on special teams, another personnel thing they got to fill in the Patriots this week. But before we also hit on that, last word from our friends over at Raycon, the best headphones in the game. And this message is sponsored by Raycon, and it's their anniversary. And what better way to celebrate than with a deal on the Everyday Earbuds Classic? They're now 20% off. So it's the perfect time to get your hands on these. They're reliable, super comfy, and easy to take anywhere. You'll see why. They've been a fan favorite since day one, and they have plenty of great features such as the quick charge. 10 minutes gives you 90 minutes of listening time and up to 32 hours of battery life with the case. And they also have awareness mode. We all know how important awareness is, so perfect when we're out running errands out around Gillette, so we stay tuned in to what's happening around us without missing a beat. And the Everyday Earbuds Classics have even better upgrades: active noise cancellation, multi-point connectivity so that you can pair with 2 devices at once, and a great fit in your ear as well. So go to buyraycon.com/PCS to get 20% off the Everyday Earbuds Classic. That's buyraycon, RAYCON.com/PCS to get 20% off the Everyday Earbuds Classic. All right, Barth, last thing here. We know Gibson is out for the year, so they also got to fill in his void as kick returner. Who do you think that's going to? We saw Ramondre Stevenson do that in Buffalo. I don't love that personally going forward next to Travion Henderson. So who is your kind of top dog here to take over that kick return job?
It might just be Terrell Jennings. It really might be just by default. Jeremy Springer was insistent today that it's got to be somebody with a bigger body, somebody who can take those hits. I'd like to see him try Kyle Williams. I think he's big enough, and I think he's good with the ball in his hands, and it would just get him involved, which I think would be good for him. But I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being Terrell Jennings. Now, something to keep an eye on, though, and Evan Lazar deserves credit for pointing this out. So that role is especially important because Travion Henderson at this point is a deterrent. Like, teams just aren't kicking to him. So I had mentioned, like, can they stack them? And
we were talking about that with Reese today, and he didn't know either. So I gotta ask someone about that if you can stack them.
They can stay. I think they can. I'm pretty sure you can.
Okay.
But the other element is once you get everybody out there and out there lined up, like those up guys obviously can't move, but the returners can. And I think they tried this last week. Have them switch.
The last one they switched.
It's the last second, right? Have them switch at the last second.
So I couldn't tell. I wasn't there, obviously, and I couldn't tell when the cuts on the all 22, it just cuts to them being in their spots. Did you or Evan know? Like, did they come out?
Evan said they came out and then switched.
Okay, so they were actually getting a little fancy with it. Interesting.
And I also wonder if there's the general thinking of this is usually you don't want the guy too gassed on the kickoff return, but I do wonder, make them kick it all the way to the boundary, right? If you're going to kick it, I forget which side Travion Henderson's been on off the top of my head, but let's say he's on the left side, right? If you're going to kick it to the right, okay, if it's like just outside the hashes, it's not like pickleball where you have to go back and forth to the side, right? Have Travion Henderson just go over to the right side of the field and get it and go. And maybe you don't want him running all the way to the sideline, but instead of splitting it 50-50, split it like 70-30. And now it's already tough enough to play some of these kicks, and now you're making them do even more because they know he's going to go all the way over there to get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be interesting. That or the stack. I do wonder if they could stack. I don't know why they couldn't.
Stack makes the most sense to me.
Well, yeah, like I don't know why they couldn't, unless it's just harder to catch the ball on kind of the run like that. But I don't know.
So that's usually the rule of thumb.
Yeah.
And probably what they don't want, my guess would be, is somebody not getting to a ball and then it bounces into the end zone and now it's the 20-yard touchback.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think you should be able to cover left to right. Like, Henderson has enough speed.
Yeah. And if you're in the middle, like, you're probably not going that far then the kick team is getting pretty risky kicking it near the out of bounds on the sideline if they're really trying to make you run still halfway across the field. So that would be interesting. But
so here we go. I've pulled up the rules. The receiving team may have a maximum of 3 players in the setup zone, not on the restraining line, but never more than 1 player in each of the 3 areas within the setup zone. bordered by the sidelines and inbounds lines. I actually don't know what that means. Did you follow that?
No.
You can have 3 players back there?
What qualifies as the setup zone?
So the setup zone is, I think the setup zone is the landing zone.
Okay, that makes sense.
No, never mind. The setup zone is that's where the blockers are.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm seeing this now. May have 3 players in the setup zone, not on the restraining line. So it's like a 5-yard window, and you can like offset guys kind of back.
Oh yeah, that's where the blockers are. So they've staggered that. Yeah.
So ignore that I said that. Okay. A maximum of 2 returners may line up in the landing zone and can move at any time prior to or during the kick. So you could.
Oh, they could run her all around
right before. Boom, switch them right. And then, and you kind of hope the kicker might not even see it. And now it's up to the sideline to watch and yell. Landing zone rules. This is just about the ball landing. It's not about moving. So I don't see anything in here about not being able to do a stack. Yeah.
Well, if they can move throughout the whole time, pretty much, even when he's kicking, you think they should be able to stack them. Or
that's what I would think.
Like, even if you can't, maybe if you can't like cover one guy, like just move one a little bit over.
Yeah.
And kind of
offset eye formation.
Yeah. Like stair step them in a way. So that would be a good way to do it, I think. And then you can pretty much get TreVeyon Henderson the ball every time. So I'm with that. But just going back to the other returner, I'm kind of with you. I think it's probably going to be Terrell Jennings, just because that's the body type they like. You know, I get a lot of questions, I'm sure you do too, about Marcus Jones. They just don't want to do that with, he's a smaller guy. You know, he already gets some touches on punt return. They don't want to kind of ease his workload, and they don't want him taking those hits. Probably why they don't want to. I would still like Kyle Williams, get that explosiveness, but same type of thing. Like, he's a smaller guy. They probably don't want to open him to those hits. We were talking about Chisholm, which Pat Stats brings up here in that role. I think that would be a good way to get him on the field on the active roster, but it's tough. Like, who are you going to make inactive to just put Chisholm out there for kick returns, right? Because we're already calling up Terrell Jennings. We're probably going to have to call up one of these edge guys with the injuries, and then, you know, it's tough to find the active roster spot on the 48 for Chisholm unless it's Pop, and I don't think they're at that point yet where they want to make Pop inactive. So I would like the skill set for Chisholm. Just I think that's a difficult task to work him onto the game day roster, just kind of to be in that role right now.
They've been pretty. If Rabel's been pretty insistent, they're carrying 5 receivers on game days. So you're going to have to deactivate Kyle Williams, which they're not like, he's starting to kind of find a role a bit in the offense. I know it doesn't feel like it because the catches aren't there, but he's playing a little bit more each week, and he's starting to get open a little bit down the field.
Too. The big catch is coming.
Yeah, it's coming. It's trending in the right direction with it. It's slow, it's gradual, but it's trending in the right direction. You're not going to inactivate Mac Hollins. They use him too much in the run game. And then, you know, Booty, Diggs, and Pop are playing. And Pop Douglas, as much as his role has decreased and his target share has decreased, he's blocking his ass off. In the last 2 weeks, it's like 2 to 3 plays a game that he's springing guys with blocks. So he's for what he's being asked to do. He's playing well. It's not showing up in the box score. This I say he couldn't be playing better. Well, Barth, you're such a Pop guy. You're cradling him for not catching the ball. Like, just go watch what he's been doing. They're not going to make him inactive right now. They're not going to sit him down.
Yeah. And credit to him for all the expectations this summer, and he was so good this summer, then to have his role kind of reduced, like the fact that he's still playing that hard when the football isn't in his hand and throwing some of those blocks, like, all the credit to him. And there's always the player too, you know, he's open wide across the middle of the field. Last week, it was one where Drake kind of there was pressure right up the middle, and Drake kind of had a rollout, and it was the toe tap for Diggs. Like, Pop is open over the middle, but there's a guy running right at Drake, so he can't get it to him. So, you know, credit to Pop for still playing hard in that reduced role. But yeah, I don't see him going to the inactive list at this point right now. So I'm with you with probably Terrell Jennings, that second kick returner next to TreVeyon Henderson, but maybe they get a little creative with how they align those guys and how they get the ball to TreVeyon Henderson there. So we'll keep watching that. But Barth, let's wrap up here with our prize picks lineup for the week. Anyone you're specifically looking at, thinking about for the Patriots, as I pull that up right off.
I mean,
let's
leave the running backs alone entirely, I think.
Okay.
What do they got for Diggs?
Diggs. I'm scrolling. 22 and a half longest reception, 63 and a half receiving yards.
I think more on that.
First touchdown, more than half a touchdown.
First touch.
Demon too, so that's the extra bonus.
Yeah, he still doesn't score a touchdown though. Maybe more on yards.
More than 63 and a half receiving yards. Okay. I kind of like we mentioned the intermediate stat, how the Saints are bad. Austin Hooper, more than 1.5 receptions. It's a demon. Like,
I don't hate that.
Randomly has these 2-3 catch games. Like, I could see that being, so I'm down to throw that in there for Austin Hooper. Pop Douglas is 12 and a half receiving yards. Bryce Behringer is more or less than 3.5 punts.
I don't know about that. They might. I mean, if they play like the way they moved to play the last couple of weeks, not going to be punting that much.
You want to go less?
Well, but if it's a trap game, like I don't.
It's fair. Yeah. Drake May, he's got 70.1% completion percentage. We have 1.5 pass touchdowns, 234.5 pass yards.
The percentage one's interesting to me. The yards one too. But the percentage one is interesting to me. He's kind of been living over 70%. I know he's a little under it last week, but
you want to go more there?
That or the yards? What do you think?
I kind of like probably yards safer.
Right, let's do yards then. Yeah,
more yards. All right, so that's 3. Let's get a couple Saints players in here, and then we'll get wrap it up with our sicko pick. Saints. Brandon Cooks, longest reception, 11.5 yards, 17.5 total yards.
Go more on that for Brandon Cooks. Revenge game. We saw Diggs have a revenge game last week. I know it's not quite the same, obviously, but I still believe in Brandon Cooks. I've always believed in Brandon Cooks.
More than 17.5 receiving yards? More? Yeah. All right. Any other Saint you're kind of thinking? Oh, Juwan Johnson, 31.5 receiving yards.
Do we want to do that, or do we want to do like a former Patriot thing? Is Devon Godshaw on there?
Oh, I doubt Devon Godshaw's on here.
Let's do Juwan Johnson, then. I still worry about them covering tight ends.
So more 31.5 receiving yards. All right.
I'll take Devon Godshaw over 1.5, more than 1.5 run stuffs though. Personally,
1.5 run stuff. It would be probably like a quarter of a sack, Devon.
Yeah, something like that.
Do you have a sicko pick or a sicko game that we can look at for?
So I got 2. The worst game of the week, I think, is why is the schedule now? Oh, it has me back in like week 2. Hang on. The worst game of the week, I think, unquestionably, is Titans Raiders. That thing stinks out loud. But we also have Joe Flacco on a week's notice starting for the Bengals against the Packers.
He already beat the Packers.
Do we go with the Joe Flacco pick?
Let's see what we got. 207.5 pass yards, Joe Flacco.
Oh, with Chase and Higgins?
More, right?
Yeah.
And if they're getting blown out, he might just have to chuck the ball all day long.
We know Joe's not afraid to do that.
So let's go more. Let's get Joe Flacco in there. All right. So we got 6 picks. We got Austin Hooper more than 1.5 receptions. That's a demon extra bonus. Brandon Cooks more than 17.5 receiving yards. Drake May more than 234.5 pass yards. Going to Stephon Diggs with more than 63.5 receiving yards. And then Juwan Johnson, those tight ends keep carving up the Pats, more than 31.5 receiving yards. And wrapping it up with Joe Flacco, Cincinnati making his debut, more than 207.5 pass yards there. We got to get Joe Flacco on the Steelers next year, just so he plays for every single
I
AFC
was
team.
tempted to tweet out the other day, like, heat check myself, future Steeler Joe Flacco.
It wouldn't make sense. So more than 207.5 pass yards for Joe Flacco there. That first place multiplier 37.5. So new users on Prize Picks, use code CLNS and get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. If you play that $5 lineup and we hit that lineup, it's $132.5 winnings. If you also want to put that $50 on there, over $1,300 in winnings. great payout there on Prize Picks. So make sure you guys can play along with us. Well, as always, screenshot that and send it out on Sunday before kickoffs again, so you guys can play along with us there. Barth, last thing I have for you, then we'll get out of here. All whites. You a fan?
Right. Yeah, I don't hate it. I do like the white and blue. They haven't worn white. I wonder if they wore white pants at home with the blue jerseys. That would be interesting.
I feel like that's gotta come now that they're breaking out these white pants.
Yeah, I'm not opposed. The silver pants are good. The blue and silver is great, but suddenly they're Oregon. Like, this is their 4th different uniform combination in 6 weeks, right? Because they had blue on silver, blue on blue, the throwbacks, and now this. Plus, they're gonna wear. I don't think they're gonna be white on white all year. So they wear white on blue or white on silver at least once. That's 5 or 6. Plus, do they wear, the white with the blue jersey, plus the rivalry uniforms? Yeah. So, like, you're talking about like 7 to 8 different uniform combinations. Like, they're just Oregon now. Interesting. And all this just to probably have like new uniforms next year.
Yeah, probably. Although we thought that last year because they kept doing the silver pants.
Yeah, I wonder if that was because of like they weren't going to let them do new jerseys and the rivalry uniforms in the same year.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I like the all whites. It does. I think their best look though is the white on blue. So it kind of sucks we haven't got that, especially with this being the first road game. But yeah, I like the all whites. Just the white pants come out of nowhere though. That was kind of surprising.
Because they've never people got on me because I said it's a first. And they're like, 2017 and in the 80s. Like, with this uniform, there's never been, these are new white pants. Never worn these white pants before because there were no white pants with this uniform. So that is a first. Yeah. I got one more thing for you before we wrap it up, unless you have another uniform thought.
No, that was all.
Huge weekend for college football. Huge weekend. And luckily, we don't have to do this in New England. Thank goodness. But it's still fun to talk about. This quarterback class that was supposed to be so good, it might suck. It might be ass. But there's a few guys hanging on that might have something going. 2 of them, Dante Moore at Oregon, who is my favorite for the Heisman right now. I like Dante Moore from what I've seen. These are not draft claims yet. This is, at this stage, I'm pretty much just that boy nice, right? But like, I like Dante Moore. I usually don't like Oregon quarterbacks. So for what that's worth, that might change this weekend. But Dante Moore versus Fernando Mendoza, Oregon versus Indiana, top 10 matchup. A lot of people have those two as the top quarterbacks in this class right now. So it'll be interesting to see them go head to head. And then on top of that, because they're also Heisman contenders as well, John Mateer, this from Pete Thamel 17 minutes ago, Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer in line to attempt to play against Texas on Saturday. His injured right hand will be monitored. There's no certainty he'll be able to go. He's listed as questionable. Mateer coming back for Red River would be so sick.
The Chipotle guy had it right. Did you see that Chipotle story?
No, I didn't.
Someone was like, I was in Chipotle with John Mateer, and he told the guy serving that he was good to go for Saturday. So there you go.
So
Chipotle breaking news.
I'll just say this: if Mateer comes back and knocks it out against Texas in the Red River sooner than he should be back, Heisman favorite, like by a lot. He's back on track. That would be such an awesome freaking storyline. But 3 Heisman favorites, 2 potentially 3 first-round quarterbacks in action in big games. I don't know. You got any thoughts on this slate or the quarterbacks or anything like that? There's a couple other big games too I didn't mention.
I like Mendoza, so I'm a Mendoza, but I do like what Moore has done this year too. So those are probably my top 2 guys. Someone asked me in my mailbag this week, what quarterback are the Jets going to get stuck with that they're going to draft and just continue to suck? And I wanted to say Lenore Sellers. That would be like such the Jets pick.
No, somebody tweeted the other week like Drew Aller is the most Jets draft pick of all time.
Would be very
Drew Aller would be outstanding.
We were talking today though. The Simpson from Bama has had a pretty nice year. They play Missouri, so that's 2 top 15 teams. So that's a good one. Ohio State, Illinois, and also a top 20 match. No, like where's the Ohio State quarterback at draft wise?
Well, he's a true sophomore.
I don't think he's eligible this year, but
I think he's got a few years. Yeah, he's a true sophomore. So he's got at least one more year, probably 2. Yeah, I'm not. I'm honestly not entirely sure with him. The Ohio State quarterbacks are always weird to gauge.
Yeah.
So that's especially a guy that far out. Like I'm not looking at him through that lens yet. I'll tell you, speaking of quarterbacks far out, but like I'm excited to see Michigan at USC, Bryce Underwood against the USC team that's put up a little bit of fight this year. Could be a fun game. So it's a good slate.
Yeah.
It's actually the noon window is like kind of weak because they don't play Red River at noon anymore, unfortunately. I think the big game in the noon window, Ohio State. Oh no, Bama, Missouri's at noon. So it's actually decent noon window. But the 3:30 window is like loaded.
Yeah,
3:30 window is a ton of good games.
Yeah,
so.
Indiana, Oregon should be a ton of fun. That should be.
I think Oregon's going to blow them out. I think we're actually going to get let down there.
I could see it going into Oregon too.
Yeah.
Good tight end, Oregon, Kenyon Sadiq, who maybe
we will talk about Kenyon Sadiq plenty 100%. In the spring, I think.
So
we will be talking a good amount.
We don't have to talk quarterbacks. We're at the point we might be having to talk about off-ball linebackers and
real quick, Brian. Let's do it. Let's do it real quick because we've done it's October 9th and we've done no draft talk, which is awesome to be able to do that after the last 2 to 3 years. Great, but we are a draft show. People come for it. We'll throw you a bone. Just if you had to do a big 3 needs today for the Patriots in the draft, what are they? You don't have to rank them in order, but like the big 3 needs for this team.
I think edge is definitely going to be up there. Maybe a linebacker to play next to Spillane. And I would still, can I just say offense, like something on the offensive line still, like, is it going to, like, do you want a right tackle for your future, or are we bumping Jared Wilson in and we want a new left guard, or are we looking at right guard maybe next year? Like something along the offensive line still TBD there, though.
So I think, Morgan Moses has been really good, but he's older, and this looks like it's going to be a really good right tackle class.
Definitely.
I'd like them to take advantage of that. So I will go right tackle, linebacker, and edge rusher, but the 2 that are sneaking up there are running back, potentially being one. And I know they just took a running back. Don't freak out, but that might be safety. And, Craig Woodson looks like he can play, but, can you improve on Jalen Hawkins? Can you get a tight end stopper? Those would be a 2 for me, but like not doing left tackle, at least knock on wood, but like
we
definitely not doing quarterback. We know that.
We could be doing first round receiver, depending where they land.
Oh, I should have said receiver. Wait, did I not say receiver?
No.
All right.
Neither of us
said bump down tight end, like tackle, edge, receiver. I'm still on the Jordan Tyson hype train. I'm not jumping off of that. So we'll see ultimately how things shake out with him, but he's been good. Sam Levitt's been good. He's not getting enough credit. They lost to Mississippi State and people just kind of stopped following them, and they've been good since. Carnell Tate too. I know it's Evan's guy. Because if they want that like true big X, Carnell Tate would be a lot of fun.
We had the whole debate in the bubble Wednesday. Like, would not put it past them, and maybe not this class outside of Kenyon Sadiq, but we'll see where things lie. Like, wouldn't put it past them to take a tight end over a receiver early with, the amount of 2 tight ends they run, with Hooper and Henry getting up there in age, like to get a real explosive tight end. And as much as Drake likes throwing to those guys, like you could definitely see them wanting to go tight end maybe early if there's a guy who is worthy of that draft slot.
Yeah, I'll say this about this tight end class. Like, it's not as good as the last 2 years. Certainly, those were unbelievable classes. It's not bad though. Like, I think there's just 2 years ago's class was unreal, unfreaking real. And then you had some guys stay. So last year's class was a little more loaded because you didn't have the sheer number of guys come out and enter the draft the year before. So now what you have is guys who are buried on the depth chart who are more unknowns. They're not necessarily just bad, but they're not proven the way like Tyler Warren. Well, Tyler Warren was unproven at this time last year. He hadn't done much, and they need a breakout year. So you're going to be looking for like Tyler Warren types in this draft. It's also just college football is still moving further and further away from using tight ends as like regular parts of the passing game. There's teams with good tight ends that just don't throw to them because it doesn't fit in the offense.
Big development position now once they
So I said this to you the other day, and I think this is probably going to be a take of mine. Like, I got to see more of these guys. It's still early, but I'm just throwing this out there. I think Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky, the 2 tight ends at Georgia, I think they're both very talented. Georgia just doesn't really throw them the ball. So now that doesn't mean you're going to take them super high, but like as a value pick, like there might be something we're looking at it and saying, yeah, Oscar Delp only caught 35 passes this year, but I really like what he did with those 35, and I'd be willing to take him in the top 100, right? Mm-hmm. That's I don't hold me to that take like with that specific player. I'm just using it as an example. It's still early, but like when you look at the tight ends this year, it's gonna be projection. There's gonna be a big element of this is what I think this guy can do off a small sample size, because a lot of these guys are not multi-year starters, and even in the 1 year, they may not be getting the ball that much. So I think the Georgia guys, from what I've seen, look talented. Let's see play out a little bit more, but that's kind of where I'm looking. And then Eli Stowers too at Vanderbilt's a guy I like that is another guy that isn't getting the ball in a volume you would think of a top 100 pick, but we'll do some projecting and look closer at him, and he could be a fit too.
There you go. Mid to October, second week of October until we talked
about this wasn't having to do it. This was wanting to do it.
We did it out of love and passion, and we weren't talking about top 5 picks potentially at premier position.
This wasn't breaking down every single play Drake May made for UNC the week before, because we have to know exactly what he's doing.
I will say, in honor of Saints Week, my first ever, I still remember it, my first ever Drake May tweet was the halftime of the Pats Saints game here a few years ago, his draft year, when it was just ugly at half, and Mac had the pick 6, I believe, on Tyrann Mathieu. Halftime, I was sitting up in the press box and I was watching some Drake May and fired off a Drake May tweet. So that was my first ever Drake May tweet. It came in the Patriots at Saints game. So I don't think I'll be looking at any draft prospects at halftime of this one. Luckily,
not quarterbacks anyway.
Yeah, definitely not quarterbacks.
So that was me. I remember I had a similar moment. It was like around this time of year, and it was the Cam Newton year. Or no, it's probably a little bit later. Like they'd start to slide a little bit. It was in October. It's like mid-October. And we're in the press box after a game, and Evan comes up to me and I'm just like, unprompted, watch the Alabama quarterback. Bill's going to take him. And
there you go.
So there's something to that. But yeah, hopefully you don't have to do that again for a long time.
Yeah, hopefully not. So some good draft talk there, but we'll wrap it up. I got to go watch the Bruins play another 2-1 painfully ugly game.
Are they 7 or 7:30 tonight?
They're 7. So puck drop is shortly. So we'll wrap up.
Enjoy all 7 of their shots.
Yeah, seriously. So, but Pasta will score on 2 of them at least, so it'll be okay. But make sure you guys are locked on to Patriots Press Pass. Like, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications so you do know when we are going to go live, or anyone else. Tons of great content. A lot of people going live as well these days. We'll be back after next week to break down Patriots at Saints. Hopefully they did avoid that trapped game and we have another win to break down. So make sure you guys again are subscribed and turn on those notifications so you do know where that is coming. And then if you are on audio only, make sure Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you can subscribe there as well. We will really appreciate that. Also, last thing, make sure you follow Barth on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com for his Patriots coverage online there as well. And you can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines, and head over to patspulpit.com for our Patriots coverage there as well. So thanks everyone for jumping on with us tonight. Enjoy the football, enjoy your weekend, and we will see you guys next week.